The human body consists of different systems that coordinate with one another in order to perform their functions well. If any of these organ systems malfunctions, the body will become unstable. This morning was a typical morning for me. At 5 o'clock, my alarm rings waking me up. Then I got up and went to the bathroom to take a bath. After, I had my breakfast, then got dressed for school. In addition to being just part of my morning ritual, all of these activities are examples of what my nervous system does for me.
Our nervous system connects all our body parts and transmits signals from one part to another. It is a system of cells, tissues, and organs that regulates the body's response to internal and external stimuli. Each part of the nervous system plays a specific role as it functions as an important part of the nervous system.
First off, there are two major divisions of the nervous system. First is the CNS. The CNS, or the central nervous system, acts as the main processing center of the entire nervous system. It processes information and initiates action. It is composed with two major components, namely as the brain and the spinal cord. Brain. This is an organ located within the skull that functions as organizer and distributor of information for the body, while the spinal cord serves as a channel for signals between the brain and the rest of the body and controls simple musculoskeletal reflexes without input from the brain. The CNS functions similarly to the CPU, or the central processing unit of a computer.
Peripheral nervous system. The peripheral nervous system connects the CNS to the organs and limbs, and it has two main divisions. The first division is the somatic nervous system. This is associated with the voluntary control of body movements, and it has two main parts. First is the spinal nerves, the nerves that carry motor and sensory signals between the spinal cord and the body. Second is the cranial nerves, the nerve fibers that carry information into and out of the brainstem. The second division of the PNS is the autonomic nervous system. This controls involuntary responses by influencing organs, glands, and smooth muscle, and has two subdivisions. First is the sympathetic nervous system. It is activated when the body is in a dynamic role or stress. It prepares the body for stressful or energetic activity, flight or fight response. Second is the parasympathetic nervous system. It maintains body functions and restores the body to normal or relaxed mode.
Going back to the central nervous system. The brain. Human brain alone is believed to contain 100 billion neurons. However, a 2009 study by neuroscientist Herculano Hausel revealed that the same is actually 86 billion. The brain is one of the most complex and magnificent organ in the human body. Our brain gives us awareness of ourselves and of our environment, processing a constant sensory data. It controls our muscle movements, the secretion of glands, and even our breathing and internal temperature. Every creative thought, feeling, and plan is developed by our brain. Our brain's neurons store all the moments of our lives.
The cerebrum is the most superior and anterior of the brain's major regions. It is the seat of reasoning, planning, memory, and sensory integration. It is located at the upper part of the cranial cavity, which is a space at the top of the skull. It is divided into right hemisphere and left hemisphere by a deep groove known as longitudinal fissure. The left half of the cerebrum controls the right part of the body, while the right half of the cerebrum controls the left part of the body. It is divided into four lobes that control senses, thoughts, and movements. These four lobes are occipital, parietal, temporal, and frontal lobe. Although each lobe has a different task to perform, they all must work together.
The occipital lobe is found in the back of your cerebrum and plays a big role in processing visual information. It is related to oculus, the Latin word for eye, while the temporal lobe has two lobes, one in each hemisphere, close to where your ears are. It primarily functions in auditory processing, having to do with memory, emotion, and language. The frontal lobe allows you to solve a complex task, undergo voluntary movement of your body parts, form complete sentences, and is responsible for your personality traits. The parietal lobe is found in the upper part of the brain. It processes sensory information from the body.
Cerebellum. The cerebellum is responsible for muscle coordination as well as the memory of physical skills, balance, posture, and muscle tone. It is located below the cerebrum and above the first cervical of the neck. Brainstem. It is made up of the medulla oblongata, pons, and midbrain, sometimes called the reptilian brain because it resembles the entire brain of a reptile. The part that connects the brain and the spinal cord and controls the automatic functions such as breathing, digestion, blood pressure, and heart rate.
Other parts of the brain include the diencephalon, which comprises the thalamus and the hypothalamus. The thalamus directs sensory impulses to the brain, while the hypothalamus controls and regulates temperature, appetite, water balance, sleep, and blood vessel constriction and dilation. Hypothalamus is also responsible for our emotions such as anger, fear, pleasure, pain, and affection. The midbrain section is also located below the cerebrum and is responsible for eye and auditory reflexes. Pons, located below the midbrain in the brainstem, are responsible for certain reflex actions like chewing, tasting, and saliva production. And the last section is the medulla oblongata, located at the bottom of the brainstem, and it connects the spinal cord. It regulates heart and blood vessel functions, digestion, respiration, swallowing, coughing, sneezing, and blood pressure. Moving on to the second main component of the central nervous system, the spinal cord. It is the link between the brain and the nerves and the rest of the body. The spinal cord is divided into 4 different regions: cervical, thoracic, lumbar, and the spinal nerves. Though the brain and spinal work together as a unit, most of the time, the spinal cord is capable of executing actions on its own. And the best example for this is the reflex action, which is commonly triggered when we touch hot objects. Did you know that there are 43 different pairs of nerves which connect to the central nervous system to every part of the body? Of these, 12 nerve pairs are connected to the brain, while the remaining 31 are connected to the spinal cord. Of these, clusters of nerves located at the base of the spinal cord are known to be the most sensitive.
Peripheral nervous system refers to the parts of the nervous system outside the brain and the spinal cord.
This includes the sensory and motor nerve fibers that are allocated throughout the body.
It's the PNS that puts your brain in touch with the physical environment and allows it to respond.
This is made possible by the peripheral nervous system's sensory nerve receptors that sense external stimuli for the central nervous system. Each type responds to different kinds of stimuli. This includes the thermoreceptors that respond to changes in temperature, photoreceptors that respond to light, chemoreceptors that react to chemicals, and mechanoreceptors that respond to pressure, touch, and vibration. Nociceptors also works only to indicate pain. Speaking of pain, pain is one of the best stimuli that our body can respond to because it helps us shield ourselves from the outside world. Ashlyn Blocker, a 16-year-old girl that has a genetic mutation that's given her a total insensitivity to pain. This happens when the peripheral nervous system loses its function to feel the sensation of pain.
The peripheral nervous system is divided into 2 divisions. The first one is the somatic nervous system, and the second one is the autonomic nervous system.
First is the somatic or voluntary nervous system. It is the part of the peripheral nervous system that is associated with the voluntary control of body movements via skeletal muscles. The somatic nervous system consists of the afferent or sensory nerves and the efferent or the motor nerves. The afferent nerves carry information from the body to the brain, while the efferent nerves carry information from the brain to the body.
Next, the autonomic nervous system is the control system that acts largely unconsciously and regulates bodily functions such as heart rate, digestion, respiratory rate, pupillary response, urination, and sexual arousal. Simply, it regulates involuntary bodily activities that involve organ functions. Autonomic is also divided into two subdivisions: the sympathetic division and the parasympathetic division. The sympathetic division promotes a fight or flight response, corresponds with arousal and energy generation, and inhibits digestion. It is responsible of the stress responses of the body. On the other hand, the parasympathetic is more like the meditator of the body, which promotes calming of the nerves to return to their regular function and enhancing digestion. It has been said to promote a rest and digest response.
Branch-like structure in the neuron is called the dendrites. They are the nerve cells listeners. They pick up messages and signals from neighboring neurons through synapses. Synapses is the spaces between neurons where message transmissions happen. The stem-like structure extending from the cell body are called the axons. The neuron's axon, meanwhile, is like the talker. This long extension or fiber can be super short or run a full meter from your spine down to your ankle. This transmits electrical impulses away from the cell body to other cells. It can be grouped together into cable-like bundles called nerves. 99% of our neurons are multipolar neurons, with 3 or more processes sticking out from the soma, including one axon and a bunch of dendrites, while bipolar neurons have 2 processes, an axon and a single dendrite, extending from opposite sides of the cell body and are only found in a few special sensory places, like the retina of our eye. Unipolar neurons, on the other hand, have just one process and are found mostly in your sensory receptors. Our sensory or afferent neurons pick up messages and transmit impulses from sensory receptors in, say, the skin or internal organs, and sends them towards the CNS. Most sensory neurons are unipolar. Motor or afferent neurons are mostly multipolar and transmit impulses away from the CNS and out to your muscles, body, and glands. Interneurons or association neurons, which live in the CNS and transmit impulses between those sensory and motor neurons. Interneurons are the most abundant of your body's neurons and are mostly multipolar.